Hello everyone, welcome to Skills Build Training YouTube channel. Myself Mohammad Zubair, and this channel is all about showing you how to become a highly paid IT pro really fast. So the topic of today's video is 10 JavaScript concepts you must know. So without any further ado, let's get started. Number 1. Arrow function. Well, an arrow function expression is the alternative way to declare a traditional function. But obviously we have some differences between arrow function and a traditional one. In traditional function we have to use this keyword, but arrow function does not have to use this keyword. Traditional functions have arguments keyword, but in arrow functions we do not have argument keywords. And in traditional functions, they can use a constructor, but arrow function cannot be used as constructor. So if we use arrow function, we should remove the functions keyword and set arrow between the arguments and opening body brackets. And we can also store function in a variable. And if an arrow function writes in one line, then we can remove body brackets and it will return the keyword. And if the arrow function has only one argument, then we can remove the argument as well. So I have some examples with code, so I'll show you how it works. For the coding purpose, I'm using the online interpreter, or you can say compiler. You can also use Sublime Text, Atom, Visual Studio Code, and you have many other choices. But for this video, I'll stick to the online compiler that says one compiler. So these are 3 code examples for arrow function. And as you can see, in first one we are adding 2 things, and in the second one I am multiplying. Here you can see I have 2 variables here and I am just multiplying them. And when I am calling it on console, I have just passed the argument. And down here if you see, as I have mentioned earlier, that if the arrow function has only one argument, then we can remove that argument. And here what I have done, I have just given the value for my a variable, and it will just return me the answer of this function. So I will just run this code and let's see what do we have. So here if you add 7 plus 5 we have 12, and if we multiply 7 and 5 we will have 35, and if we double, or here we also multiplying 5 with 2, so obviously we will have 10. So this is how arrow function works. We do not have to worry about using this keyword. We also do not have to worry about using the arguments and the constructors as well. So that's a really simple to use and really easy one to have. Number 2, default parameters. Well, we can use the default parameters in a function after we have ES6. In case if never pass the parameter, then we can set the default parameter. And the default parameter will set if you have passed undefined or you didn't pass the parameter otherwise. So I'll show you the code example here as well. So these are 2 functions that I have just created. Now let's run them and then I will explain what it is all about. So here if you notice, I have just given the value in the function for one argument only, and that is b equals 5. Down here I have just written a plus b. But as you remember, we do not have any value for a, but when I have called this function onto my console, I have just passed one parameter with value, and that is 7. What it will do, it will automatically take the value for variable a, and then it will just add these 2 values in my return function. So that is why we are having 12 as an answer. And down here, if you see, we have done the same. But this time we have given the value for both of the arguments, and here you can see we have 7 and 4, but here we had b equals 5. But what it will do, it will overdo this value, and return function will have this one, that is the latest one. And that is why we are having here 7 plus 4 equals 11. That was all about the default parameters, and now let's move on to the next one. Number 3, double equal and triple equal. We have 3 types of equal, this one, and this one. I will talk to you about the second and the third type, because they both have different meanings. Let me write a code here, then we will explain it. So this is the code here, and if you see, I have declared a variable as name and I have given a value of string 30. Then I have also created a variable with the name of val and then I have given it the value of 30 in integers. But here if you see, I have compared in if statement that if 30 of string triple equals 30, if that is the case, just print true, otherwise print false. And if I run this program, and here you can see it has given me the answer as false. Why is that so? Well, when we use triple equal, it compares the value and it also takes concern with the data type. Here we have 30 of string and here we have int of string. That is why these are not equal, because both data types are not same. Well, in case if I remove one equals from here and now if we use double equal, what it will do, it will only compare the values irrespective of their data types. And now if I run this program, here you can see now it is giving us the answer as true. So that is the difference between having double equal and triple equal. Double equal doesn't concern or doesn't care about the data types, it only look for the values. But that is not the case with triple equal. And with that, let's move on to the next one. Number 4, scope. A simple definition for a scope in JavaScript is scope is the accessibility of variable, functions and object in some particular part of your code during the runtime. In other words, scope also determines the usability of the variables and the resources in the area of your code. So means variables that you are using and the resources you are using in your code, it also defines and determines the usability of it. So as per the definition, we can say the point in limiting the visibility of variable and not having everything available everywhere in your code. Basically, in scope, we have two types, global scope and local scope. Let's have a code example and then we will explain it. So this is my code example. Here I have a variable with the name of greeting and here I have written welcome to skills build. Then I have created a function and in that function I have printed console.log greeting. What it will print out? It will print out welcome to skills build because it is taking the value from the global variable. And if you see, we do not have any greeting in this particular function. And why it is still printing the welcome to skills build? Because greeting is being declared globally. That is why it is taking this greeting and it is printing every value with respect to that greeting variable. Now if I run this program, here you can see it says welcome to skills build. In case if this was not on the global level, this wouldn't have been the output value here. So that is the difference between global variable and local variable. Let's say I want to create a variable in here. So I will just write here variable1 and I will give it the value of hello. Now if I have another function in here down here, for example, let's say I create the function with the name of function2. And if I try to access this variable with the name of variable1 in that function, I will not be able to do so because this variable is been defined on the local level. But if I try to access this one greeting in my other function or in any other function, that will be accessible because greeting is defined on the global level. So that's a difference between having local level variable and global level variable. And we tend to use some global level variables in our programs. So that was all about the global and local variables, or you can say scope. Number 5, hoisting. Well, in JavaScript, what hoisting means is, hoisting is a JavaScript mechanism where we have variables and functions declaration and they are moved to the top of their scope before we even execute the code. And now let's have explanation for the hoisting with our code. So this is my code example and here you can see I have just called the hoist here, but hoist is not defined anywhere. In fact, it is defined after this line. Here as you can see it says variable hoist and we have string value. Well, in actual, the interpreter looks at this code like this. First one we have variable hoist, then we have console.log hoist and at the end we have the value for that. So this is how hosting works. and it is a new mechanism where variables and function declaration are moved to the top of their scope before the code execution. So this was all about the hoisting in JavaScript, and now let's move on to the next one. Number 6, currying. Well, if I explain currying with example in JavaScript, basically currying is a technique of evaluating the function with the multiple arguments, and these arguments should be into a sequence of function with a single argument. In other words, what we can say, when a function, instead of taking all the arguments at one time, what it does, it takes the first and then returns a new function, and then takes the second one and then it returns a new function, which takes the third one, or you can say third argument, and so forth until all the arguments have been fulfilled, and at the end you can return all of those values. So I'll show you that how this works. So here you can see I have just created a function with the name of function, and in that I have passed one argument and then I have called another function. Then again I have returned another function, and at the end I have returned all these three values. Here you can see I have A argument, I have B argument, and I have C argument. And then after getting out of this main function, that is add, I have just passed the values for these argument as 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. And now if I run this program, here you can see if you add 3, 2 and 1, we get 6. And if you add 6, 5 and 4, you get 15. So this is how currying works, and this is how you can pass function into another function, and you can call as many as per you like. That's a really strong concept in JavaScript. Number 7, isNaN method, or is not a number method. Well, this method returns the value true if the argument is not a number. Otherwise, it returns the false value, or it returns false as a result. So I'll show you that how this works actually. So these are some of my examples for not a number method, and now let's run the program and let's see what do we have here. And the first output we have here is false, because obviously 12 is a number, that is why it is saying false. Down here we have false written in string, and we also know that this is not a number, that is why this method is returning a true answer, and here we have true. Same goes for these two, and now let's have the last one. And here we know that 12as is written in string, and we know that is not a number, that is why it is returning us true as an answer, because as we know that not a number method only returns the value true if we have the argument as not a number, and we know that 12as is not a number, that is why we are having this answer. Here you might be wondering that why do we have false as the answer, because 12 is not a number in string. Well, in JavaScript, what it does, it ignores the string and it only sees at the number. That is why it is taking it as a number and returning false value. And in here, we do not have anything. That is why we have false here, but in here we have 12 with as. It means as and 12 is not a number in any case. That is why we are having true as the answer. And now let's move on to the next one. Number 8, primitive values. We have 7 primitive types in JavaScript. We have number, big int, string, symbol, null, undefined, and boolean. I'll show you the example of all of them. So let me write code here, then we will talk about it. So these are the examples for my code, and here if you see, the first one is 0, 1, and as we all know that 0, 1 is an integer type, that is why it will return number. So if I run this program, here you can see it has returned me as number. Then we have something here written in string form, that is why it will return a string. And then we also know that true and false is a form of boolean. That is why it will return boolean as primitive value. Then we have undefined. Obviously, it will return the undefined as the output. And the last one is null, and it has written object as the primitive type. Well, the type of null in JavaScript is object. That is why it has written the object as a primitive value, or you can say the type of null. So that was all about the primitive values, and now let's move on to the next one. Number 9, objects and functions. Well, without the primitive data types, JavaScript's other data types are reference data type. and these are objects and functions. So as I have mentioned earlier and as I have talked to you about primitive types, now let's have some examples of objects and function. So here you can see I have some examples of objects and function. What I have done here, I have just entered the name and I have given it the value. Then I have an array, and in that array I have 3 values. And if you remember, when we were talking about the arrow type function, we had this as a function. And as you can see, we have the arrow here, and that is why it will return this one as the function. And now if I run this program, here you can see the first one is object, second one is also an object because we are taking the array, and in the first one we had the string, but in the third one we are using a function that is arrow function, and the last one is expression. As we all know that we have some regular expression, and I will also talk about this regular expression in detail in the next point. So this is also a function. So this is all about the objects and function, and this was the main difference between having objects and function. As you can see, I have used a function in a function. Here I have used object in a function, and then same goes for this one and for the last one as well. And with that, let's move on to the last one. Number 10, regular expression. This is a really powerful technique that is being used in almost every programming language. Same goes for JavaScript. Well, regular expression is a sequence of characters that forms a search pattern. For example, if you want to search something particular from a string, you can do so by using just a simple regular expression. For example, when you search for data in a text, you can this search pattern. I have some example to show you and make things more clear for you. So I will just write the code here and then we will move ahead. So here I have a variable with the name of text, and in that I have passed skills build as the value. Down here what I want to do, I want to search build, and what it will do, it will return me the position where build is starting. So if I run this program, here you can see it has returned me 7 as the output. So if you count the character here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then we have space 7 and then we have 8. But as we all know that in most of the programming language, index starts from 0. That is why we are having 7 as an answer. So this is how you can return something particular from your string using just a simple regular expression. Now let's have one more example. So this is another example for the regular expression. And if you see here, I have written skills build here, but S is in small, and we also have some backslashes in here, and we have I at the end. Well, this regular expression will ignore the case sensitivity and it will only look for the characters in the string. So this is how you can use regular expressions for case sensitivity as well. And now let's have another example. Here we have another example, and here I have text is equal to visit YouTube, and then I have let result equals text dot replace, and then I have two string YouTube and skills build. What it will do, it will replace the YouTube with skills build. And now if I run this program, here you can see I have successfully replaced a piece of string with another one. This is how you can use your regular expressions to replace your strings. This is another example. And in here, if you see, I have two backslashes with YouTube, and then I have I, and here I have the string that I want to replace with. And now if I run this program, here you can see it says visit skills build, because it has ignored the case sensitivity and it has just replaced our string with the new one. So this is how you can use regular expressions in your JavaScript. We have many regular expressions that are available out there, but this was all about giving you the idea that how regular expressions work and how you can use them in your JavaScript coding. And with that, we are done for today's video. Please leave a like and subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon along with it. And if you have anything to ask, please leave a comment below. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Till the next video, take care.